Well, LL goes to, well, LL. It collapses onto itself. Is that a good crypto? No, it's not. So one of the first rules about a Playfair cipher is you can't encrypt a pair of letters that are the same. So what do? You shove a filler in there. How about we put it in a queue? Would that work? Because you're not using it. Well, all right, because then you don't know what to do with it. It won't process through your encryption algorithm. So what do you think we ought to do with it? We'll stick an X in there. Why not? X marks the spot. So you can look at, we've padded the LL at the end and put an X after each one. So now that pair of LL becomes LXLX. So now is the time for all becomes the following. We take that grid, and now the N and the O, if we look at it, there it is. Third row, second column. NO becomes SJ. WI, we look in there and it becomes XG. And as you look at each pair and take a moment to look at the grid, it's pretty straightforward. Well, you can code this thing, or if you had to, you could do it by hand. Seeing as this came from the 19th century, I would say it's a pretty good job that it was done by hand initially. In fact, a lot of these things can be done that way. When I run crypto contests, I found people looking for, hey, I gotta go download something, get a little JavaScript. Do it yourself. Think through it. Don't let somebody else do your thinking for you. The reason being is that as we look at cryptography, it becomes the backbone of a lot of things we do in our society. It's also our protection for privacy and security, but it's based on some real simple moves. Probably the most secure cryptography ever invented by man is what's called the Vernam cipher, or one-time pad. What do you think one-time pad means? Use it once and throw it away. And so how long do you think the key has to be? The same length as the message. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to XOR them to the bit by bit. So XOR works really nice. 0 exclusive OR 0 is 0. 0 XOR 1 is 1. 1 XOR 0 is 1. And 1 XOR 0 is 0. What mathematical function does XOR look like? Modular addition, but a mathematical operation. That's not something in 5th grade would know. Pardon? Not division. Can't divide by 0. Well, yeah, but that's not a simple. How about a not equal sign? Okay? Is 0 not equal to 0? No, it's not. 0 being false. Is 0 not equal to 1? Sure, it's not equal. So that's interesting. If we do not equal, if anything is not equal to 0, or if anything is not equal to itself. So if anything is not equal to itself, what collapses what? Onto a string of zeros, right? So if we encrypt a message with the key, and then we re-encrypt the message with the same key, what happens to the key? It goes away, and you get just the message back. That's the not equal sign. And so now if we go ahead and we do some basic 0110 math, there's no carry in exclusive OR, which is great. You don't have to think. You just do one bit at a time. Hardware likes one bit at a time. You don't have to worry about carrying. And so this is very, very fast. And this type of stuff is what you're going to see implemented in hardware most of the time. Now, if you want to encrypt it, by the way, so substitution cipher, one-time pad, you can substitute with or without a one-time pad. But the cool thing about a one-time pad is you use it once and throw it out. Now, banking used to use that back in the 60s and 70s down in South America. But the problem was they were reusing the keys. Now the problem was, I said, if you reuse the key, what happens? Something plus itself adds to all zeros. And if I exclusive OR 0 to 0, I get 0. And if I put the 0 to a 1, I get 1. So exclusive ORing 0 to a message gives me the message. And so now what was happening is you'd intercept one encrypted message, you'd intercept another encrypted message, you'd XOR them together, and now you have one message encrypting the other message. But guess what? Those keys have patterns. The letter E, encrypting E, is the most common thing you're going to see, and you're going to see spikes and valleys, and now you can break that apart. And once you crack that, you've reverse engineered it, then you pull out the key, and now you can break every banking message, and you can empty the bank. That's why you can't use keys over like that. So let's think. If you want to win crypto contests, how do you do it? Helps to think like the person that developed them. Anybody's doing Lost Challenge this year? Yeah, everybody, yeah, a couple guys back there. It's like, well, why aren't you out there hacking with the hardware? Did you figure out what is on the badge yet? It has to do with Lost? Yeah, okay. So you try to think of that guy. If you listen to his talk at 101 yesterday, he's got some really weird ideas. But it gets you thinking outside the box. Anybody go to the Ninja Network party last year? We had this really cool badge. And if you played around with it, it rated around and finally said Ninja Party. And if you went ahead and played with it, it was a game of Simon. And when you got all the way to the end, it said, don't cheat. Playfair cipher. Playfair cipher. Yeah, I want it. And that up there in the substrate was this particular set of paired letters. Looks an awful lot like a Playfair, doesn't it? And now you kind of eliminated all the other possibilities of what it might be, and you can start cryptanalyzing that and going after it. Playfair, by the way, 676 different combinations. You know, there's a lot of things you got to worry about in some of these big grid things, but you don't have billions of keys. So there's some ways you can come up with some patterns and things like that, and that's what was out there on that particular thing. Okay, so let me tell you about a couple of crypto contests that I gave you, because I got one for this year for DEF CON, and if I give you an idea to get you inside my head, like these folks who already won my contest, you're going to understand a little bit about how these things are put together. All right, so it was just after Mardi Gras a couple years ago. I went down with my wife to New Orleans, and she's a fairly good-looking lady, and so, like, she didn't even have to show anything. They just throw in piles of beads. Well, she thought, this is great. Well, you know, what am I going to do with beads? I got back to the hotel room, and there's like this massive amount of beads. I kept to take, like, making runs to it. So I was like, I want to keep them. Why? Well, I can't throw them out. Yes, dear. So I went across the street to Walgreens like 1 in the morning, get this like big box, started loading up with beads. Well, it's getting heavy. You figure, what's your weight limit before they start charging you? 50 pounds. So what do you got in a hotel room? Bathroom scale. Put the box on the bathroom scale and weigh it. What's the problem? Box is bigger than the bathroom scale. You can't see the readout. So how do you solve the problem? Think like a hacker. Yeah, weigh yourself, but it's how I did. I figured rather than hold this box trying to look, because then how are you going to see it, right? It's just in front of you. Put the garbage can on the scale, which weighs maybe 1 pound, then put the box on the garbage can. And so I checked in with a 49.5 pound bag, a box, and the lady was saying, you're going to charge extra, says weigh it. And she's like, yeah, no, put your hand off. You can't charge me. It's exactly right. And so these things came home. I didn't want to kick them around the house for about 10 years, so I figured, okay, a couple weeks we got SHMOOCON coming up. So this is what any normal person would do, right? If you had a whole bunch of beads sitting in your front hall, you'd invent a crypto contest. So I also have friends with too much free time. And so they developed all kinds of like really cool graphics that they were handing things out and posting it on. Mardi Gras, that was fun. She's also into cats. And your beads breaking your ciphers. Pretty cute, okay? So even cats get crypto. So what I did is I took all these beads. I randomly placed these things in the reg packets because Bruce and Heidi are friends. And what we did is I unloaded a bunch of these things. Purple, gold, green, and pink. Well, what's the 3 colors of Mardi Gras? Purple, gold, and green. Where does the pink come from? I'm not sure, but I had a bunch of them. So Lost was helping me with this one. Mouse was out there, okay? And we wore red beads. So we're 4 people wearing red beads. Everybody else had these other different colors. So what do? We had extra strings of red beads because if somebody solved the problem, we give them a red bead. Well, what does that do now? Now the other person who you're competing against now has administrator privilege. They look like a judge. They got a red bead. So you can walk up to somebody who's got red beads on and say, have I got the answer? And they might have the answer, but they could say, no. So you had to work around the social engineer problem. So then I put a whole bunch of messages in the other packets. These are the plain text. Congratulations on your opportunity to join our first SHMOOCON Crypto Conundrum, and things like, and you'll obtain an important hint that will assist in solving the first round. What's unusual about that text? Who said that? Come on down, you got some good stuff waiting for you. No letter E. That was a little bit tough, so I couldn't say the word red, so I had to have like a string that is the color of blood. But it turns out, and those are also the same length of text, the plain text didn't have the letter E. The guy from Google who was working on this thing came up to me like on the second day and he said, you are evil. Because he had tried everything he could think of and he couldn't come up with it. Why? Because you're looking for where E maps to and it wouldn't map to anything. Because what I did is I took these things, which is, by the way, it's called lipogram. There is a book out there called Gadsby, which I think Lost used a couple years ago as one of the keys. It was a lookup as part of his puzzle. And you had to go find that book. And the entire story of over 50,000 words was written without using the letter E. Imagine that. So the padded plain text, we go ahead and notice what I've stuck in the middle, that letter Z again. You might see that again. In the military, when the instructor said something would be on the final exam, they would kick the podium, so you'd be aware of it. That's also what you found out sometimes in the military back in World War II. If you wanted breaks between words, you put Z's in there because there weren't too many Z's out there. And if you had go to the zoo and you had ZZ, you'd figure it out. So I used 5 Caesar ciphers. 7, 13, 1, 18, 11. What does that sequence spell out, by the way, in terms of index from the alphabet? G-Bark. Yeah, you already got stuff. You want some NSA swag, though? No, you got plenty. Okay. Yeah, he works there. He's a Fed. So what I did is just encrypt each one of them to this type of ciphertext. Pretty straightforward. Each one, as you notice, has its own commonality. So if my GMA, so the third one, you're going to see a lot of repeating letters, but look at the stuff that you find there. And in fact, if you look at the last letter of each ciphertext, because that was the letter Z, remember I had to pad Z's at the end to make them all the right length? That's a weakness in my system, because look at the last character in each row. G-M-A-R-K. Now these are actually separate, so I forced people to actually socialize. You had to talk to at least 4 other people to go ahead and come up with these, because I wouldn't give them all to one person. And then I also had clues like this. This said shmoo, 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 shmoo. Actually, wait a minute. Yeah, I guess I did put them all in the same thing. I got a drink. So, 6 variants, talked about the equate. And the few terms figured out. And by the way, I put little like sayings down there, like it's, if you do not shmoo, it's too bad for you. And then the greatest good you do for another is not to just share your riches, but to reveal to him his own. They had nothing to do with the contest. It's amazing the way that people are just obsessing and running down rabbit holes, with a concession to the bunnies here, bunny hole, for stuff like that. So, you got that? You got this thing. Again, for my friend who has more time to do than she knows what she's talking about. Anybody can read that? Can you try the first line? Come on, I only got 50 minutes. Red E, 4 more. A short visit to see. In this case was a hacker looks past 50. That was my talk that year. And is a what? Well, no, not quite. That's the word operation, missing the letters P-A-I-N-N. It's a painless operation. So that's the way Lost thinks. I don't think this way, but my friend did this. So ready for that, and there you go. And so if you came to my talk, a hacker looks past 50, you got new clues. Because that got you from the first stage, second stage, and here we go. And I handed out cards, admit one, must be present to win. So I used to do random drawings, and we pick stuff like this. Here I'm just looking for smart people, which is better. And it had at the bottom of each one some little text field down there. Now these cards are original. They're from my mom's attic. I had them from an old job deck from the 1970s. Mom never throws anything out. She's lived in the same home for over 50 years. Thank goodness for that. If you wanted old stuff, tough for you when she passes away, because we got to go through all that attic. But meanwhile, it's great for getting old 50-column cards. So that was that. And if you look at all these things at the bottom, you'll see all these letters down there, PS, QC, FY. Well, we did a place fair. And the Playfair cipher was the key. A hacker looks past 50. Why not? That's the name of the talk. So, again, we populate the squares using the things that we talked about before. And there we go. And that then becomes the encryption scheme. We take these messages, and these are the 4 messages that I put out there. Go ahead and email mardi.gras@shmoocon.info. Who owns shmoocon.info? Me. Why? It was 99 cents at GoDaddy. Bruce didn't grab it, he didn't care about the .info, so why not? I think DEFCON.info is probably long gone, but you can think of these things early enough. It's first come, first served. Quick side story. Back in 1995, when I was first poking around the internet domain list, 2-letter domains, AA.com, AB.com. How many possible 2-character domains are there? Well, 676 are their letters. I got to throw in the numbers, but who wants like 0x unless there's something after it? Well, it turned out that what percentage of those domain names were not in use? About 88% of them. It turned out that there were only about 80 of those domains were registered. And they could have had any of them. But back then, the ethic that we had was you don't take stuff you don't need. It was like seashells on the seashore. You see one you like, take it. You don't see one you don't like, just leave it. And so we just kind of let them go. So anyway, you can email, go to a website, make a phone call, and then interact with humans, the scariest part of all. We pad that for encryption. Squish them down together. Note the presence of a couple X's in there, like SHMOOCON on the top row, S-H-M-O-X-O-C-O-N. You only have to worry about the double letter in a Playfair if they happen to be in odd-even positions. Because if they're in even-odd, they stretch across the pair and they won't affect each other. But there was an error that one of the teams made that they discounted the whole thing because they found some letter pairs. Because if you go ahead and you encrypt it with the Playfair cipher, it looks like this, but then you find out there's a bunch of letter pairs. If you're careful, though, you notice that RRMMIIKKAA, they're not part of the same pair. It's the last of one and the first of another. And one team spent half a day, they forgot to even think about Playfair because they assumed, incorrectly, that this is going to be a pair of letters. So you got to count. Because you can't have double letters in the same position. In this case, it was kind of deliberate on my part. You notice you throw little curveballs in here just to make it fun. And so if you do each task, here's what happened. If you auto-responder,